I think when it comes down to it, like, while that's all well and good, like sometimes you have these unseen trade-offs. And as an artist where you've got 1,000 other things to do, maybe less than optimal ad results are actually better. It probably sounds nuts to an ad expert, but I think most artists out there probably know what I'm talking about.
You're listening
to the CD Baby.
CD Baby.
CD Baby.
DIY
Musician Podcast.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to episode 345 of the DIY Musician Podcast. My name's Chris Robley. Joining me in a minute will be Cristina. And today we're going to talk through my top 10 tips to simplify your life running ads on Instagram or on Facebook or TikTok or wherever it is you decide to run ads. Because the simpler it is, the easier it is, the more you will do it. And the more you run ads, the better you will get at them. And the better you get at advertising, well, the more people will stream and purchase your music and come to your concerts and so forth. And that's really the point of running ads in the first place. So we're going to talk through the whole process of making your advertising life easier and more effective. Following that, stick around because Erica Parr will be joining us for a segment of The World where she talks about how enthusiastic audiences are in Brazil and why artists outside of Brazil should really consider going to Brazil to tap into a really engaged music fan base. And if you decide to do it, how you can go about booking tours or finding festival slots. So stick around to the end of the podcast for that one. All right, let me bring Cristina on here. Hey there.
Hey, how are you, Chris?
I'm good. How was it? You just went on a break, didn't you?
I did. I went to Portland, Oregon for a couple days. I went to Idaho to visit my mom.
Did you do anything?
Swam a lot.
Nice. Did you do anything musical?
I released a new single. That's a musical experience. Yeah.
That's right. Right at the beginning. And actually for you, swimming is kind of on-brand music activity as well.
It's also how I clear my brain. So it was definitely a very important thing. Also, the past 2 years, we've had the DIY Musician Conference every summer. And since we didn't have, this is like the first summer I've had where I haven't had that to plan. And so my brain is a little more open for music. And yeah, it's great. I definitely wanted to write more. And I think, I've been making music a lot this year. And I think that my brain needed a break. Sometimes you just need a break, even if it is vacation and that's the perfect time to make music.
Well, and people who listened to our last episode probably heard you say a couple times you're running a label too, where you have one release every month?
Every month.
Which is a lot.
Yeah. So on top of releasing your own music, on top of having a full-time job and all that stuff and, all the things, you have to think about marketing every freaking day,
Yeah.
So it's a lot. Yeah.
That's a decent segue to our topic because what I was going to say, obviously this is informed by my own experience running ads on Facebook and Instagram for my own music, as well as doing a lot of work recently over the last, 8 or 9 months for some other artists in the same realm. But you're someone who I kind of think of as doing well through organic Instagram stuff. Like,
right.
So I just I'm curious if some of the things that I'll say about my own experience relate or don't relate to what you've done, since you're mostly, engaging your existing audience as opposed to like using ads to reach out to strangers. But
well, and doing well is very subjective. I think that's opinion based because I wouldn't necessarily call it doing well under anyone else's metrics, but definitely have solely relied on organic, haven't really spent money on ads, more out of financial ability. And so I too am curious your thoughts on all of these things, because I think it's interesting to try to learn how to balance the two.
Yeah, well, before we dive into the discussion, I had like a few disclaimers, and the first is, although I have probably more experience running ads than 90% of your average musicians out there, like I'm still not I'm not an ad guy. I'm not an ad expert. So I'm an idiot. What do I know? This is very much like my anecdotal opinion or whatever about the data I have gathered running ads for myself and 3 or 4 artists recently. And I do think somehow like some of this advice that I'll give might fly in the face of the experts out there, because they're experts. They're like concerned with optimizing every element of an ad funnel. I think when it comes down to it, like, while that's all well and good, like sometimes you have these unseen trade-offs. And as an artist where you've got 1,000 other things to do, maybe less than optimal ad results are actually better. It probably sounds nuts to an ad expert, but I think most artists out there probably know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, definitely. And also I think you're discrediting discrediting yourself just a little bit because you also do work in a marketing team at a major company, and you
That's
do
true.
have experience with ads, as do I, building and using Facebook ads, Instagram ads, Google ads, all those things. So we do have some experience, but it is true that it varies from the type of ad and the type of campaign and the type of audience, and all of those things react differently. And also, what we learned 5 years ago using Facebook ads may not translate today. The thing is, everything evolves. So yeah, where do we start?
Well, I think before I get into like 10 slightly more specific tips about simplifying our lives with ads, I just want to say, like, I think all of this was based on this idea I've had that progress is more important than perfection. And I think when we listen to ad experts tell us all the right things to do, it's very complicated and it takes a lot of work. And even with me running ads fairly often, I never feel like it's muscle memory, if that makes sense. And then you get intimidated and you're looking at this dashboard where everything moves around every month or two. And so I just think simpler and dumber is actually probably better for most artists than stressing about optimizing everything.
Absolutely. I don't want to know the tips and tricks sometimes, I just want to know how to set it up. Give me a ballpark of how much I should spend for how many people are going to see it. And also, I'd like some transparency. If really nobody's going to see it and I'm just spent $50, like, I'd like to know that, I'd like to know a very accurate, transparent depiction. Although I don't know if we'll ever get to that. That being said, yes, easy interface, easy user experience. That's what I'm looking for. And that is coming from someone who has run ads professionally. It is overwhelming no matter what. Every time you start, it feels like you're starting from ground zero again, or square one, not ground zero. Sorry. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, so you're talking about kind of like the easy button, which is interesting because my first tip is actually, it might be easier to avoid the easy button in advertising. And so what I mean by that is that, at least in the Facebook world, like if you go into the Meta ads manager and you're thinking about running ads across Facebook and Instagram, they now have all these tools to sort of think on your behalf. They can guess at your audiences without you even needing to put in interests or sounds like artists or anything. You can also kind of give it a piece of content that then they auto format to square and vertical and whatever else for every possible, placement location they have, stories, reels, blah, 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 everything. You can plug in 5 different bits of captions, and then they have the ability to run, all these different permutations of your ad to see what does best. And that sounds great, except I'm the type of person who wants to know, I want kind of like immediate feedback that I can feel so that I know what to change moving forward. And if my pressing the easy button means that Meta is actually creating 25 or 40 different versions of my ad, which then I have to parse out later, which one's working, it's confusing. It's daunting to me, even though I know they will, in theory, only be putting money or putting the most money behind the winner of those. I just want to know right away what's doing the best. And so I guess all that to say is maybe it might be best to avoid the easy button and try 1 or 2 things and keep your A/B tests very simple. Does that make any sense?
Absolutely. So when you talk about that, are you talking about a visual? Are you talking about in the copy of your ad? What's your A/B test here in this like simplified ad hypothetical?
So all of the above, which I think my second tip is your gut can lead the way. And I think in the ad world, they like to say test, because we don't know. Yes, that's true. But artists also don't have infinite amounts of time to run all these different tests. So if you have the inclination that this song is your single to lead with, just pick that song. If you think that it will do best as an Instagram reel, as a vertical video, just commit to it being a vertical ad. Maybe even more specifically, commit to it being run on the ad platform that you think your audience, like, why do things across Facebook Reels and Stories and Instagram Reels and Stories when you kind of have this gut feeling that your audience is more on Instagram? Just run it as only an Instagram Reel, a vertical video. And, I don't think you should not test anything. That's not what I'm saying, but lean into your intuition that one thing work. Like, I kind of feel like we know a little bit, like, that's the caption that belongs with this video. This is the song. And so it's okay to, yeah, like I said, lead with your gut. Just launch the thing as an ad without many permutations. And then rather than A, B or A, B, C, D, E, F, G testing things in real time, kind of do a similar thing, but across time. So you just run this ad, see how it does. And then down the road, you'll have another ad. Well, put that one in the running against the previous one, whether it's a different song, different video, whatever, and see how those do against each other. So you're not, just overcomplicating everything in your own ability to assess what's working or not. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I think going with leading with your gut is the intuitive ad creation. A lot of times, again, this can sound really markety, but finding the voice of your audience can be very, very simple. So if you're sort of struggling with figuring out what your copy should be in that voice, first of all, there is AI that can help you with figuring that out, which, surprise, surprise, never thought I would say out loud, but here we are.
I do think in the past month you've embraced it. Some of it.
I'm not going to go that far,
okay.
But I will say there are useful uses of it. But if you want to be a real human brain and do it yourself, you can. So I would say an easy way to just sort of develop the basic copy and don't overcomplicate it, just writing, a 1 to 2 sentence call to action, is think about who that audience is. So if you're going to do an A/B test, maybe one is towards one demographic, the other one is towards the other demographic. Write a list of like 10 things that you would say in the style of that person, or, think of one person that represents that demographic. Let's say the demo is a 35-year-old woman, me. How would you market to me? Think about how I would speak, how I would be sharing this, and then maybe write 10 things, 10 call to actions in that voice. That's one way to sort of test out a very basic call to action that you can test out in various voices and various audiences. Is that?
Yeah. No, I think that's exactly what I'm thinking of. But some of that testing and some of that sort of vetting of what's going to work can happen kind of before you get to the ad platform. Like you've come up with these 10 options,
right?
You probably yourself can whittle it down to the best 3 and then ask your friends, ask your bandmates, ask your fans, whatever, like which resonates, and then just go with 1 or 2. Because that's what I'm trying to say, is just whittle it down to the bare bones testing so that you have immediate and clear feedback that's easy to access to say, oh, this is working better than that. Here's what I can tweak next time. And then the other benefit I see to doing that approach is assuming it's working to some degree, you can leave it running and you can, sort of reduce the ad spend to a daily kind of maintenance spend where you have these I don't want to call them evergreen because that assumes it's working well, but basically you can leave an ad running until you have another ad made that feels like what your gut instinct is telling you to run. And then, put that one in the running. If it beats out the old one, great. Now you have a new maintenance thing. And if not, just leave the old one running. So I think that's another way of simplifying your life, is just saying, I'm going to continuously run the ad I have, that one that's working, until something else beats it. But I don't need to stress about that being next week or next month. It's just whenever I get around to that.
And then when you're writing copy for an ad, how silly do you like to get with it? Or how sort of esoteric? Or should it just be straight to the point? New single out by Chris Robley. Hear it now. Link in bio.
No, I do not think it should be like that. I don't know about if silly is the right word, but I guess I should also sort of clarify, when I'm in this discussion, I really am thinking mostly about ads that you run to strangers, the type of thing that's gotta catch someone and get them engaged.
He doesn't know you. Obviously.
Doesn't know you.
Right.
Yeah. So like if you're talking about running an ad, your existing diehard fans, then like, hey, my new single's out, I'd love for you to hear it, might be the best thing. For a stranger, that is the worst thing. They don't care. They don't know you. So you have to do something where the caption intrigues them enough so they want to unmute the video or read the post or whatever it is. So does that make, I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah. And I think you're actually very, very good at this, just knowing you as a copywriter and also as an artist and poet. I think you're very good at creating really engaging stories around your releases. And so I think that, like, what would that look like for you? Let's say you are targeting a stranger. I'm that stranger. I'm reading your post, or I'm reading that suggested sponsored post. What does that look like?
Well, I have some examples. So let me just say, I already addressed my third tip, which was to just pick one platform and run with it.
Right.
I think that simplifies things. You're kind of alluding to what I had as the fourth tip, which is that humor and strangeness from the start can be the best intro. And that is both in the visual content, the first second or two has to have something grabby, but the caption should be in service to that as well. So for one of my videos, I had my daughter and I, and this thing that it's like a catapult for whipped cream that puts all this whipped cream in your face. And we shot a music video that I kind of let her direct. And so
that's cool.
The video is very weird from the beginning. So I thought that would get people to watch, but also the caption was just, "This is what happens when you let an 8-year-old direct a music video." So it's a little
awesome.
clickbaity or whatever. It doesn't ask anything. The ad didn't have a call to action besides just wanting people to watch the video.
That's a very quick, basic, it is clickbaity, but it is also you're servicing the song, right? You are sending everyone to the song to hear the song. Ultimately, it reverts back to what the music is, but you're also adding this piece of humor. I want to know what happens when an 8-year-old directs my music video or directs a music video. So I think that's a really strong. That's one of those things I would have never thought of.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really just about planting curiosity that can only be answered by watching or unmuting. There's some mystery that's going to be revealed. So
I love that. I'm going to just go ahead and pull quote you, "Planting Curiosity."
There you
the
go.
Autobiography by Cristina.
Planting curiosity and then never answering the question. Just
I love that.
Over promising and under delivering every time.
The DIY Musician Podcast. Planting curiosity, never delivering.
Never delivering. The Autobiography of Chris. Yeah, so I hope that makes sense in terms of both the copy and the content of the ad. I think another thing, my fifth tip here is that when you're thinking about what kind of content to even create, live or something that feels real time is usually much better than a scripted music video or a text-based post. We're in that social world where people want everything to feel like a TikTok video that's like, I just made it. It's real. This is the real me. I would have to say in my own music, that has not been true. And the things that I have put attention into making a strange music video have always outperformed anything I've done that's more TikTok-y. But with all the artists that I have done ads for recently, the opposite has been true. And the live TikTok-y type stuff always outperforms their proper music videos. I do think that maybe because their proper music videos feel very proper. They're not gimmicky in the way that I've tried to make my videos gimmicky.
Interesting. So they're not planting curiosity.
Yeah, it's like the slowly unfolding music video, which people don't have time for on social. So, yeah. Sad
truth for sure. I'm very hesitant towards those sorts of things. Just videos in general, the talking in front of the camera videos, the, "Hey guys, I'm Siren in the Sea and I've got a new single." Like that terrifies me extremely. But I definitely can understand why it's important to set sort of discomfort aside sometimes and just service the audience that you're trying to capture. So I appreciate that insight into what is working currently and what isn't working, because my inclination is always more formal. Here's a clip of the music video. I'm not talking at all. There's I've always really liked the old, those commercials that would be like John Prine's great top 12 hits, and there's a clip of each one of them. I've always wanted to make
the
one of
song
those.
Titles would scroll there.
Yeah, totally. I've always wanted to make one of those, and I feel like that would not perform today.
I don't know. It depends. So I guess it depends how funny or how much curiosity you're planning, because if it was around a theme and you led with the theme that someone could relate to and they felt the need for, apart from that need being met specifically by your music, but I don't know what it would be. Are you sick of all the other music that you want to relax in the bath to? Well, here's this. And so about the need as opposed to your music specifically, but then, there's your humorous thing with the 80s TV commercial.
Would you say that video performs better than just a static sponsored post?
Yes.
Okay.
Like a static image, you mean?
Yeah, rather than a static image and some copy underneath, video just definitely performs better.
So yes, as a general rule, I have an exception to that I wanted to mention later, but yes,
Okay.
I do think that. And you reminded me of something that, so I've talked a lot on this podcast about Alice Howe, who I've been kind of consulting with for 8 or 9 months about her ads, and she has done a couple outreach ads that have done well just to get people into her sort of social orbit. But then we've done a few different attempts at getting people to specifically buy her merch or to, jump to Spotify to hear her songs. It's much more about her music. And some of them have been that kind of like, hey, it's me, it's Alice, my new song's out, whatever. They do okay. She's done ones that are very TikTok-y where she's like putting on her makeup and talking about something about her personal life that's like relatable. And then there's like and I put that into my album that's kind of about this thing. Those do slightly better. And then the thing that did the best for her, we had this idea to do a kind of a mockery of the instructional video. So it's 35 simple tips to put out an album.
Oh, I love that.
It's a timeline. It's a completely real, but also somehow absurd timeline of the years it took her to put out this album, starting with like, oh, well, you just have to raise $50,000 on Kickstarter. And then you get signed to a label, and then they pay for you to go and do this in this amazing studio. And then the label drops you. And then a pandemic hits and you have to stay inside for a year and a half and you can't put the record, so it's like
classic,
the tumultuousness of her recent life putting out this album. But it's in the guise of like, I'm at the whiteboard, like trying to teach you something where you really have nothing to learn, but somehow it feels, even though it's so specific to her and her album, it felt universal to musicians.
Yeah.
So tons of musicians were loving that post, and it did really well for her just because it had humor and instruction aside from really it being the call to action to finally go and listen to her album.
But you're also learning a lot about her in a very short amount of time, right? So if you're a new audience, now you know her backstory and you're more inclined to want to listen to her music. So I think that's brilliant.
Yeah. It was a great example of like being entertaining and personal. So I was glad we ran that one. Another tip I have is that trolls will troll, and they can make your life harder, or they can not matter at all. And so what I mean by that is, I think when we run ads on social platforms, we feel like there's some co-ownership of the content somehow because it's social. But I think sometimes that leads us to feel like we need to leave the trolls' posts up or to answer them as if they deserve anything from us. And I think we should think of it as an old school thing. You're buying property. You're buying a billboard to talk about your music. And if someone went and put graffiti over a billboard, you'd be pissed. You'd probably get the company to replace the billboard or whatever, and you'd move on with your life. You wouldn't let this person take up your real estate that you're paying for. So my first bit of advice is respond. If it's rare, if the trolling is rare, maybe respond in a humorous way and show that you don't give a shit about them. They don't faze you, because that can work to endear other people who are seeing the post to you. If it gets out of hand and there's a lot of trolling, just delete every last one of them. You don't owe them anything. And the reason why this is sort of top of mind for me is my friend Katie, I've been helping run ads for, and she has this amazing song that's about body image and shame and like growth past this, sort of a really difficult part of her younger life. And it's a beautiful song. And the content around it, I was like, hey, lean into this being confessional and vulnerable, because that's the thing that's going to get you the diehard fans. And I'm like, you might have to brace for a lot of trolling. And she did. The trolls came out, and it sucked to see. And yet I was so confident in her doing this approach because the music's good. I think if a lot of trolls come out of the woodwork and it's all trolling, well, maybe it means your song sucks, or maybe it, but in this case, it didn't mean that. It meant that something about her song was powerful enough, or something about the message was powerful enough to bring out the bullies. And I'm like, this is a sign it's working. So delete every last one of those and keep running this, because if you notice, the people who are commenting in a genuine way are so moved, like they need this. So fuck the trolls, delete them. Move
Amen.
on.
Amen to that. Just holistically in life, period, 100%. There's always going to be trolls. I was actually just talking to my mother about this. She said, I don't know how you do what you do because you're setting yourself up for like criticism from strangers all the time. And absolutely, I am. I get all kinds of messages from people trying to critique the things that come out of my mouth.
You're to this, you do that, right?
Yeah. And it's not just that. Sometimes it's how you look. I got a message once, or like a troll, someone I didn't know just commented on a video of me dancing saying yuck. And I thought it was hilarious. Of course you're like, wait, what's so yuck about me? But you just have to let it slide off your back. It doesn't matter. People will people. And there's no such thing as bad press.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone paid attention enough and it stirred in them so much that your existence made them have to furiously use their thumbs, then you did something well. That's art, baby.
Yeah.
Art is reaction. Art is getting people to do crazy shit. So feel good about making something if you get bad comments or trolls. And also don't take any of it personally because it's always a projection of what someone else is feeling. The end.
And it's tough to do. That is tough to, like, when people say crappy things, I'm like, oh, are they right? But
I mean, it lingers for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely have said, oh, it didn't bother me, but then bring it up 30 times later. So
yeah,
it lingers, but
and why I put this into the simplify our lives in advertising again is because of that thing of, I do feel like we default to thinking that social is a shared platform and that we owe these people anything.
Oh, right.
So let's just say we do not simplify your life, delete the comment, move on.
I'm also always so sort of just my mind is blown when I see comments. I like everybody, I'm addicted to reading the comments, and I'll see a post from someone I don't know. I'll read the comments and I'll see all these people tearing this person apart. And I think, what ownership do you feel you have over strangers that you have even a place to say something negative about something someone else is sharing? It doesn't make sense to me where we went wrong in the society where we think that like anyone owes you shit. The fact that like if somebody posts something controversial to your worldview, they don't owe you anything. They don't know you. They don't know your feelings and your perspectives. And sorry, this is
no. I go because it's like you definitely don't owe them agreement.
No,
and this goes, I think, in all directions, whether we're talking politics or aesthetic values towards art, or it's like no one owes you agreement.
No, and so to bring it back to ads, I don't think you should be afraid of sharing your truth in an ad. But I do think that if you are trying to campaign to like a larger audience, maybe consider. I don't know. Do you think watering it down is appropriate, or do you think don't water it down? Be yourself.
I think don't water it down, because what's the point? Like then you're just going towards some median, boring, whatever. Like it better. I don't think necessarily try to offend, but try to be yourself, because that's the thing that will plant the curiosity, I think, and be.
Yeah, trolls will troll, but you don't have to be a troll unless that's your art. In which case, a lot of great art. Limp Bizkit came out of being trolls.
Ooh, okay. You're officially on the record as saying Limp Bizkit is great art. All right. I like it.
Uh-oh. I don't know how I feel about that.
I was going to say something about the next point I had on here was feeling and connection trumps gloss and production value. So I feel like maybe that's kind of obvious these days, and it might relate back to leaning into the live, casual, in real time format or feeling. But I think it goes beyond just the format of the ad or the content. And I bring it back to that ad campaign that Katie did, where she was talking about an extremely vulnerable topic. And she created, a few different options. And actually she did this organic post that was text-based. It was just an essay. And I thought, my bias was, don't run that like that. Just post it. Great. That's a great Facebook post. But no one reads anything anymore. And I was completely wrong. That post did better, went further than anything she had ever posted in her life. And all it was an essay. And I was blown away. And then I was like, wait, no, this makes sense because she's just being her. It's vulnerable. It was very well written. So it's like you can tell this person has a kind of poetic mind. And it was well done. But just another example of the vulnerability of the text even outperformed what you might think of as production value of a video. Like just even the format being more vulnerable. It's like, this is great. So anyways, lean into you being you, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, that definitely comes just back. Oh, we keep coming back to simplification also comes from being genuine. So being as authentic as you can, planting seeds for people to want to know more about you, and being simple and genuine. People can smell inauthenticity, and they can tell when you are playing a violin for the point or for, well, they can tell if you're leaning into something that you're not. So being authentic is just absolutely always the way to go. And that goes for artists and that goes for brands. I think that there's a big move right now against brands sort of jumping on to like some sort of platform just to sell something. So thinking about how inauthentic it may sound if you do that as well,
Yeah. Well, I even think of it. I mean, this is going to show my probably age bias, but like, how there's this thing on Instagram and TikTok of like the stunt performance where like,
No.
like stunt musical performance, like as in like, hey, watch me, I don't know, loop 14 things in the next 10 seconds to make this cool soundscape or song
Oh,
that
sure.
lasts for 30 seconds. And like, again, maybe this is just shows I'm of a different generation, but I'm like so off put by that. It feels inauthentic. It feels like a manipulation to me. I'm like, cool, you're good at that. And maybe it's fun to watch you do this once, but do I want to watch, every day you post a new video like this for the next 2 years? When are you getting back to like making an art that's about connection rather than showing off?
Hey, that part. Absolutely. I would get really bored of that on stage probably unless you kept expanding on it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Amen
It's
to
like
that.
it's like the social video equivalent of like a guitar solo that's like 12 minutes too long. And you're like, dude, 30 seconds would have been good.
Yeah, it was a cool flex, like maybe for a week, and then you just kept doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah. Let's see. What else was I gonna? Number 8 on my list is don't build audiences just because. Have a follow-up plan. So while maybe having a follow-up plan ahead of time sounds more complicated, what you're actually doing is simplifying your life later. So I have been guilty occasionally of running ads that I don't know what they're for beyond what they're immediately for. So this ad is about getting attention and building like an audience on Instagram. Okay, great. Well, it did that. Now what do I do with them? And because I didn't know beforehand, I just get, out of mind in a way. I don't make it happen, or I squander the opportunity I had by building the audience by letting it expire, because ad audiences don't last forever. You've got 180 days or 365 days to hit these people up before Instagram sort of says, nope, they're not yours anymore. So just know what you're going to do with this attention beforehand, I guess is
yeah. And maybe know that you're going to receive anything from this audience before you target it. If you are a folk musician living in the Midwest and you try to target like a predominantly hip hop art audience in LA, at least know that you have like a strategy and there's a reason to be reaching that audience, and that there's a reason to be connecting with that audience. So just thinking about what your strategy is there. Why are you trying to connect with them? What are they going to get out of your music? That sort of thing.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like the realistic expectation. Actually, that's a good segue to number 9 on my list was question whether you actually want to run ads to Spotify or not. And I don't think
there's
done
it.
Oh yeah, I've done it a lot, and it's one of those things. It's mixed results all the time. So I don't think there's a right answer. What I can say is that when it works better, there's a great video. It's a good song, so all that's aligned. But on top of that, there's a budget where you can consistently run, whatever it is, $15 a day, $20 a day to Instagram. And for an indie artist, for a DIY artist, that's a lot of money to think $15 a day for the next 3 months. I can't afford that. And so there is a sort of like I don't know how to say it. Like if you can't meet that expectation, maybe do something with the ad attention you're getting. Maybe don't spend all that money sending people to Spotify, half of which will fall off and not do anything, half of which will press play but not get past 30 seconds, and a few of which, will like so like I guess if you're trying it and within the first couple weeks it's not doing the thing you want it to do, it's okay to run those ads for a different reason, and that reason could simply be to build an audience on Instagram. It's a perfectly reasonable thing to do if your ad is good at getting attention but maybe not getting people off the platform.
And that sort of goes back to what you were saying in the beginning about sort of leading with your gut and leading with analytics as well, finding the balance between the two. What is working? What isn't working? Where do you put your energy? Don't try to keep beating the same campaign over and over again if it's not working. Sort of just lead with your gut. Okay, if that's not working, let's try something else. And it's okay that that didn't work. It doesn't mean that you're a failure on driving people to Spotify. Find another way to get people there.
Yeah. Or find something else to do, and maybe Spotify's not the place to spend time and attention and money, because from a monetary standpoint, it's almost never worth it. You're never going to make back in streaming revenue what you spend to get people there. That's until you become one of the very few lucky people who get that critical mass of ad attention where Spotify takes over and now your song's being heard tens of millions of times.
And that has always been my biggest barrier to entry with ads, is thinking about what the monetary return is versus what I'm putting in. So if I'm putting in $50 in ads, I need to know that I'm going to be making at least $50 back. And what does that look like in streams? That's a very long time and a lot of people for streams. So it makes more sense to me to put my money towards something that would return at a higher rate. So maybe like I would point people to my Bandcamp page where they can go buy my merch or go buy the CD digitally, or the CD. Whoa, go
CD
buy
digitally.
my record digitally. But yeah, driving to Spotify has always seemed like a challenge for me to really justify the financial investment.
Yeah, and probably never has anyone spent $50 and gotten it back from Spotify.
Right.
So
maybe some labels out there.
Yeah. And that's not even, I'm not even trying to talk shit about Spotify. That's just the nature of advertising, is like,
and streaming.
You're not going to get that particular return. So anyways, it's okay to question that and have a different objective. And the last thing on my list to simplify your life running ads is it is totally fine to go back to old content and run that. If you are like, I don't have any ideas for a new video ad, or I have no concept to what to create. Well, maybe you don't have to create anything. Maybe go back over the last 5 years of things you've posted and remind yourself of what worked long ago. And again, to strangers, it's going to be new. So it's okay to just run those things as ads.
Well, you've inspired me, Chris. I'm going to try an ad.
Sweet.
I'm going to try it.
What's your budget going to be? What's your objective?
I don't
What's
know
your audience?
But budget, but like a lot of artists, I definitely can find myself in an advertising rut. So like you said, sometimes it can appear that I'm doing well organically, but it's really to the same sort of recycled audience. So I'm definitely just released a new single. This is sort of the prime space for that, because how do you reach an audience outside of the current one? So I'm curious. We'll see what the approach will be. I'll probably bend your ear a little bit, but I am definitely more inspired now to at least try something new. And this is coming from doesn't like to do anything new lady. So
well,
we're embracing.
Before we bring Erica on, I'm curious, did you try out Groover yet for your single? Weren't you gonna?
I did.
Anything happen?
Yes, I hesitate to say more.
Uh-oh.
Okay, so if you've heard me speak before, you know that I have hot takes about companies that rhyme with Hub and and Mover. I did try Groover. I was really impressed that I received more positive responses than negative. There weren't any real negative responses, but my hesitance, I'm just gonna say it out loud, is that it did still feel like I received a lot of canned responses. So it seemed like, similar to my experience with Submit Hub, I received feedback that the track didn't work for them, which is fine. You don't really need more than that, usually, I think. I did receive a lot of feedback like, the track was great, but I didn't like her voice.
Oh.
So that was probably personal, but then there were a few that was like, love the vibe, wish it was a little more upbeat or whatever. And I'm like, the way that you worded this makes it sound vague enough that I feel like you've probably used this exact same 5-sentence paragraph to like thousands of people. And I say that because I had experiences with Submit Hub where I received what I thought was very personal feedback, and I was pretty disappointed in it. And I even shared it to like a few other musicians, and they said, oh my God, we received the exact same thing, word for word. So now knowing that, I'm a little more cynical when it comes to the feedback part, and I'm not sure how I feel about the feedback part. But I got on a few playlists, so that's great. That's all that matters. Groover
That's
gets
always
a thumbs up from me.
that's the trade-off. It's like, what do you have to endure to get the end result that you wanted to begin with? Like, you wanted to get on some playlists, it did that, but then you got a bunch of like shitty or irrelevant interaction with your music that.
But again, you have to sort of go back to what I said earlier about feedback and criticism, and trolls going to be trolling. Not that I think any of the curators are trolls in any way. It's literally their job to pick it or not pick it, like I do think you have to just sort of, what I learned from my first experience with Submit Hub years ago, don't do that right before your record's going to come out, because you're already so stressed that no one's going to like it. And then a bunch of strangers listen to it and they're like, yeah, this sucks. And then go into it a little bit with a thicker skin of, it's literally their job to pick this apart and tell you why it didn't work for them personally. So you can't take that too personally, Yeah, I was worried maybe my vocals do suck, but then I listened to it and I said, you know what? No, they don't. I like my vocals. So,
well, and vocals are so subjective too.
Right?
Yeah. So, well, if if after that mixed review anyone wants to try out Groover, we do have a coupon code somewhere on our blog.
It's worth it.
Go to the DIY Musician blog, type in Groover. I have a couple articles that are like walkthroughs and case studies of what different artists got from the experience. And I forget if it's a coupon code or a link, but you'll find it on our blog to get a discount to use it. All right, we have Erica to come on to tell us why artists should go to Brazil to tour and play festivals.
Hi, Chris. Hi, Cristina. It's nice to be back here to talk about music again. And today I'm here to let you know that you should pay attention to Brazil, and you should definitely put Brazil in your plans for your next tour. And I'm going to start with some interesting statistics about Brazil, so you can consider that. So Brazil has a huge population of 214 million people, which makes 1/3 of the total Latin America's population. 3 out of 4 Brazilians have access to the internet, which makes music streaming a catalyst for the growth of the music industry in Brazil. Music is definitely part of our DNA. We really love diverse music. We just consume a lot of different kinds of genre. We also listen to global superstar as well as local artists. If you see our numbers, you will see that Brazil is consuming all. And that's why Brazil is such a huge market for everything related to music. People in Brazil love attending live events, with data showing that folks that have online access, 1/3 of them saying that live events are important to them and they are going to spend money on it. Brazil fans like me, we are very loyal, we are very excited, and we are online. You can find all of us on Instagram, on Facebook. So we're ready to learn about your music. And we're also pretty huge super fans. When we like your music, we are going to consume, we are going to engage, we are going to talk about you. If you look of the fan groups or fan clubs, Brazilians are all over the place. With that in mind, I invited Marina Mano from Brazil to give us some more practical tips in how you can start your plan to break into the Brazilian music bubble. Marina Mano is the founder of The List of Music, an artistic producer and marketing agency specialized in music. She currently serves artists as She's, Badzilla, Ruby. She's also management for Tuyu and Billy Sagat and others. She was kind enough to prepare a video for us with those tips, so let's roll it.
Hey guys, all good? Well, my main tips for independent artists who would like to break the bubble and come and play shows here in Brazil, I would say first, search for Brazilian artists within your musical niche or who have audiences with similar profiles to get in touch and try a feat. And this is very possible when you find Brazilian artists who are also interested in internationalization. Maybe you can develop a tour here in Brazil and another in your country by doing this exchange. Second, research which are the Brazilian music conferences. Most of them have showcase opportunities and you can sign up. Write down a few like Sim São Paulo, Música Mundo, Hacktown, Fins, Coma, Porto Musical, Feira da Música, among others. Third, if you already have a relevant audience in Brazil, look for a booking agency that can do your show negotiations here and that are also government-supported projects that can subsidize your tour in Brazil. Check if you have in your country. You can also start a digital marketing work aimed at Brazil. Here we are heavy internet users, but I suggest that you look for a professional who has experience in Brazil because the language of music is universal, but in communication, content in Brazilian Portuguese can help you get here faster. Thanks and good luck. Hope to see you around here.
Hey, thanks for doing that. That's great.
Of course, yes.
We have you here as our resident guest expert. Can you be a resident guest? As our resident expert, and then you called in another expert, which is
I did.
double expertise.
I did because she's the person, and I know she's really involved with the live music there, and just a good person to give us tips. And all of that will be in our blog article, so we can link for you all of those festivals that she mentioned, and also any other details that you need to know about how you can start your big plan to go play in Brazil.
Yeah, one of the questions I had for you, which I think probably best belongs on the blog, is just what does someone, let's say in the US or Canada or the UK, have to do paperwork wise to go and play there and potentially make money there? Because I know as an American, sometimes going to play in Canada, there's some bureaucracy that you have to go through.
Yes, that's a great question, and it will vary by country, but I will make sure to add that to the blog because for sure you will need some kind of documentation, but I'm guessing it will vary depending on the country you're coming from. But we will add all of those links, so we will facilitate your life when you're planning to come dominate Brazil.
The thing I love the most about that video was, so if you had said to me, hey, like, you should go play in Brazil, I would have no idea where to start. It would seem very complicated, maybe expensive, intimidating. I would have no reference point for even where to begin. And her first tip was something that I feel like every artist, no matter where they live, already does in their life, which is like, make some friends, book a gig with them. And then, of course, like the thing to do if you're touring is like, hey, book a show with me in your town and I'll book one with you in my town. And it's like, this is just a slightly more long distance version of that thing we're already doing.
We love this mix. I mean, I would actually add to this blog a little bit of a playlist for you to see all of the mashup and all of the mix, a lot of the featuring the Brazilian artists have done in the last few years or ever for that matter. I think it's very important to do this mix because Brazilians, we have been seeing more and more this collaboration between artists around the globe, and that makes it so their base know about you, and vice versa. I feel like this is a great way to find out about other artists. I have been a person that I listen to a certain artist, and then suddenly he appears with a featuring that I have never heard about it. Mm-hmm. And then I click on top, and it's a bit of a clash of genders, but it's just work. So enjoy this crazy mix that is Brazil, and there is we consume music in a low setting, in a small setting, in big setting, in the same intensity. If you go to Brazil streets on Saturday night, there's going to be music everywhere. And you're going to be even like where I'm listening to, because this one is playing too, and there's the big houses and there's the stadiums. We are bubbling with music, and I think with all what we're seeing with the music marketing in general, not just Latino artists breaking through the US market, but the other way around is happening too. So now is the time.
I think I'm now realizing there's a reason why so many English speaking artists shoot their live concert videos in Brazil. Like there's a Rush live concert DVD that I had, 20 years ago.
Yes.
I'm like, I wonder why they did it there of all places, because it's not convenient for them. And then I was like, maybe it's because there's a huge population. Like it's like the 8th largest economy in the world. So I know they can get people, but then I'm like, oh no, it's because the people that there are going nuts. Like they're so into it.
We are intense. And when we get the opportunity to see a big act, we are not going to go unnoticed. Brazilians will make noise, will sing along, even if they don't know the lyrics. This is true, what you said. There's a lot of acts that have amazing stories of playing in Brazil. And you're going to get that, even if you're, you don't need to be a giant act to get that. We are going to be present, and we're going to dance, and there's going to be, good energy. So I just think, why not? So take a look at your data today, see where your listeners are. You might find, a lot of folks in Brazil. Take a peek of who are the artists that maybe align with you, and risk a collaboration.
Nice. Well, looking forward to your next appearance here next month. I also wanted to give you a shout out, because to anyone who first heard of Peso Pluma on the previous episode you did maybe a month ago, they've probably seen his face and heard his name like 100 times since then, because he's been everywhere.
I went to the concert. Barack Obama put him in his summer playlist. A lot happened into that.
Life is good for Peso Pluma, yeah.
Yes, it is. And other Latino artists too. It's a great timing for international music and music in general. I think, let's collaborate. Let's just make it more concerts, more live music. I'm ready.
Sweet. Well, see you next month.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for having me.
Well, that's a wrap.
Solid stuff.
Boom.
Boom.
Do a thing.
Do stuff.
Make it happen.
DIY musician. Plant seeds.
All right.
Go make an ad. Tell us how you did.
Peace.
Thanks, everyone. Talk to you soon.
You've been listening to the CD Baby DIY Musician Podcast, broadcasting from Portland, Oregon, USA.